You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Crystal Lavender. She's an author of her own book, Say You Love. Also, she is a coach and an artist, a musician. Hi, Crystal. Nice to
Hello.
meet you. Thank you
Thank you
for
for
joining
having
us
me.
today. Yes, and let's start a conversation with diving into your story of overcoming your personal challenges in the past. If you can just reflect on, share with the listeners how was it for you in that journey, and what kind of lessons did you learn through it, and how did it make you stronger?
Well, it started in Las Vegas, Nevada in 1994. We had just moved into a trailer park off of Washington Avenue. It was like our brand new start away from our cockroach infested apartments. I was so excited to finally have my own room again because me and my mom shared a bedroom for a long time. And my 13th birthday came with a lot of new changes. Like I had a phone that was now super glued to my head, my very own room. And then there was this cute older guy with his own place and own car that wanted me, of all people, to show up at his house. So I devised a plan to sneak out of my house for the very first time. And the very first time that I snuck out of my house was the very first time that I was introduced to it. And the very first time that I seen it, it came in a brick. And
Mm.
at 13 years old, I thought I'd found the love of my life. And we even shared the same name. My name is Crystal. And from that point on, I started doing crystal meth when I was like 13 years old, with the older guy that lived, he had his own place, his own car. I didn't think anything wrong with it at that time. I was still young and naive. By 14, they had put me into drug rehabilitation. Like I was in outpatient drug rehabilitation. By 15 years old, I started running away from home. I lived on the streets of Las Vegas, Nevada, homeless. I had a home, but I didn't want to, I couldn't party there. So I was on the streets of Las Vegas, and I put myself in a lot of situations that were completely unsafe. You know, I experienced a lot of trauma when I was younger. I was abused as a child. I was sexually abused as a child, and it kind of took away my ability to say no. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know how to say no to things that I didn't want to say yes to. I was just a
Yeah.
very people pleasing person, and that carried on into my adult life. It took
Mm-hmm.
me a long time to learn how to set boundaries, to learn what loving myself actually meant and what that really encompassed. I did drugs from the time I was 13 until I found out I was pregnant when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found out I was pregnant, I stopped everything completely and I thought it was all over, and then I switched to drinking. I was like, well, at least I'm not smoking crystal no more. At least I'm not doing this. So it's like I gave myself this excuse to still indulge in bad behavior. I If I wasn't drinking, I had a boyfriend who was drinking, and I found myself in a lot of toxic relationships. I'm still trying to do that people pleasing thing. And when I was sober during that time, I learned how to tattoo. I was in a band. I was in a band, like a punk rock, thrash metal band, for about 5 years. And then I went through an experience that completely kind of broke my soul. I ended up being with somebody that was doing inappropriate things with his daughter. And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was very eye opening in a lot of different aspects, because it made me understand how hard it was to actually face that reality. I held a lot of resentment for my mom when I was younger. Like, well, why didn't you do anything about this situation? Why, I carried a lot of resentment for a lot of people's parents. Well, how come you didn't do anything? I always felt like if I ever caught somebody doing that, I would just stand up and, cut their junk off, or, I always had this mentality that, if that ever happened to me, oh, it'd be over. But when I found myself in that situation, it was the hardest reality that I'd ever had to face, was actually coming to terms with the fact that the person that I loved was actually really doing inappropriate things, and it kind of set me on a downward spiral. Like I ended up getting on disability. They diagnosed me with CPTSD, and I was terrified everywhere I went, like terrified, because I mean, he didn't go to jail. The baby mama did take the baby and they left state, but he didn't go to jail, nothing. His story was that I was just, a jealous ex-girlfriend, and his whole family was after me. And like, I was terrified. I was terrified to leave my house. I was terrified to be at work. I was terrified to be anywhere. I quit my band. I lost my tattoo shop. It took a lot of realization to understand how strong I really had to be to face that reality. And it gave me a lot of compassion for, other parents that have been in that situation that weren't strong enough to face that reality, that,
Yeah.
and after that, I kind of spiraled downhill again and I relapsed, and I hit a pipe one time, and that one time lasted for another 5 years after that, and everything I almost lost everything. Like my kid disowned me. I went from not having a door on my bedroom to always having my bedroom door locked. I thought that people were watching me. Like I went into the psychosis, like the drug induced like psychosis where, I thought my phone was listening to me. I thought that, I was on some makeshift movie, that I was like the star of this makeshift movie. It got pretty scary. And then, I found the law of attraction. I started delving into the spiritual realms of stuff and found the law of attraction and started learning about how my inner talk was actually affecting my outer talk, and I started watching, Abraham Hicks and Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I was listening to tarot cards on YouTube, and I found Archangel Azrael, which is like the angel of death, but he's actually the angel who helps God, the helper of God. And I started really researching like archangels, and I ended up finding Jesus through my path of recovery. Like I grew up really pagan. I grew up in a coven and always like had really pagan roots. So I'd always had love for God, but never really gave Jesus a chance to enter my heart. So I opened my heart up to Jesus and like really delved into the whole law of attraction. Even when I was still in active addiction, I would tell myself, no, this is not what you do anymore. Even as I'm smoking, like, oh, you don't smoke this anymore. And the more I kept telling myself that, even though it felt strange at first because I was still doing that, it ended up where I wasn't doing it anymore. Like I would tell myself I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. As I'm smoking a cigarette, I don't smoke cigarettes. That's not who I am. And then eventually like I don't smoke cigarettes now anymore. I ended up getting a job, and they wanted me to be a manager at the job that I'm working at now. Law of attraction, like learning how to speak to myself. Like the universe only says that is correct. Here's some more of whatever you are thinking. We have this idea that there's this omniscient being that's judging us, in the sky, but
Yeah.
what's chaos to the spider is, or what's chaos to the fly is normal to the spider, like God's not judging the spider or the fly, he just is unconditional love, learning like
Right.
Christ consciousness and that whole unconditional love.
Yeah. And with you sharing that story, that is very, heartbreaking, and it's, everybody is feeling that pain that you went through. And thank you for sharing that. It's just, I want people to understand that they're not alone in that situation that you've been through. A lot of people going through the same thing, and they suffering in silence. Sometimes they very afraid, they're scared to talk to anybody about it. They feel shame, they feel guilt. It's all overwhelming. And in the end, it could be very detrimental to their own well-being, to their life, to the point where they, think about taking their life away. So it's very important to know that there are some people out there who can support you and help you to go through this. And there are either organization or like communities or just individual that you can reach out to. In your case, who were those people that helped you through, those difficult times?
Adam Vibe Gutton. He is the co-founder of Recovered on Purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up in my messenger inbox out of nowhere when COVID first started happening. And I have about 5,000 people on my friends list, and I didn't know who he was. So I was like, who is this person that I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
to? And I went and clicked on his profile, and it said Recovered on Purpose on his
Yeah.
profile. And I was like, Recovered on Purpose. I was like, I just kept saying it over and over in my head, Recovered on Purpose. I was like, I want to say that. I want to say that. Not only do I want to say that, but I want to mean that. And so
Right.
I started like watching from the safety of my home. I mean, because I was kind of agoraphobic still at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So having an online, the whole online community has been really, really helpful because, I mean, it took a long time for me to be able to go to therapy. I felt like, oh, if I go to therapy, that's just admitting defeat. Like I had this thing in my mind where I felt like it was an admission of defeat, like that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't handle it on my own. And in reality, like it showed me how strong I really was to actually go and seek assistance. Like there's a lot of people that think, oh, if I go to an AA meeting, like I can't get caught in an AA meeting. What are people going to think of me? But when I actually ended up attending my first AA meeting, Adam was a speaker there. And that was really the only reason why I went, is because he
Mm-hmm.
was my mentor. I looked up to him. I watched his videos online, and like, I really wanted to become part of this Recovered on Purpose family. And he was speaking at a meeting up in Colorado Springs, and I showed up late, and the room was already full of people. And I go to walk up to the door, and there's the whole room full of people. Adam's already talking, and I go and I stick my hand on the doorknob, and I'm like, no, 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 you can't go in there. Like you're just going to disrupt the whole thing. You can't go in there. And then I did that a couple of times, and I was like fighting with myself in my head, like, oh, you can't even make it on time to things you want to go to. There's no point. I started going through this self sabotage, like, and then finally somebody saw me at the door, and they opened the door, and they made me
Mm-hmm.
come in, and the only seat that was available was right up front. And I was like right in front of Adam. And that very first meeting, he gave me one of his books, and it's called From Chains to Saved. And it's his spiritual journey from the darkness of addiction into spirituality, finding Jesus and stuff. And he gave me his book and signed it and gave me a hug, and like offered me a sponsor. I had no idea what a sponsor was. I was really just there to, and like to see this person that had influenced, me to try to change my
Yeah.
behavior. And um, the sponsor that he gave me lived in a different town than I did. So it didn't end up working with that sponsor, but I ended up started going in meetings in my own town. And I just kept up with Recovered on Purpose. I kept watching his videos. I kept listening to him talk, and I just kept saying, I am recovered on purpose. I am recovered on purpose. And I was very loud about it. Like, that's one thing that people have a tendency to do, is they sit in a corner quietly, and then fight all these demons themselves, because they feel like it's hush hush. It's like they're ashamed, and I think that has caused a lot of separation. But
Mhm.
in my experience, I'm like, no, I am recovering loud. I am recovering proud. I am recovered on purpose. Like, not
Yeah.
only did I recovered on purpose, with purpose. Like, I have a purpose to help people out there to understand that they're not alone, to know that it is possible, no matter how far gone, no matter how shameful you feel, no matter all the dirtiest dirt you have ever been through, you can come out of it. It is possible.
Mhm.
So I ended up joining the recovery tell your story powerfully recovery speaking
Mhm.
course. And I got certified as a recovery speaker, and I wrote a book about addiction recovery and childhood sexual trauma.
Yeah.
And I published it on my 41st birthday in October, and I
Oh.
dedicated it to my inner child.
Oh, that's beautiful. And the name of that book, Say You Love,
Say
right?
You Love, yes. It's
Yes.
Say You Love, S.Y.L, but it's Say You Love. And it's the testimony over the darkness of childhood sexual abuse and addiction.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I just want you to share what actually inspired you to write a book? Like why you wanted to be a book in the first place to kind of like make yourself heard?
Well, it was a testimony that saved me. It was Adam's
Right.
testimony from Recovered on Purpose, you know, and
Um,
he wrote a book, and he wrote a book in 5 weeks. And I really wanted to follow in his footsteps.
I see.
And once I joined the coaching program, like it's a speaking course, but he's like, Crystal,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, ever since I've met you, like your speech just comes out like a book. He's like, I think you need to do it the way that I did. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we made a date, I set the date for my birthday, and I wrote my entire book on my phone.
Oh, wow.
Everything. There's a lot of people out there that, you know, feel that they can't do something like that because they don't have a computer. You know,
Right.
they don't have the spelling, they don't have the grammar, you know, and with the technology that's out there nowadays, like I did text or talk to text on my
Mm-hmm.
phone for my whole entire book. And Adam introduced me to his publisher or his proofreader, and I turned it over to the proofreader, and she got it formatted. And I went to 99 Designs to have there was a competition between like graphic artists for my cover. You know, you kind of give them an idea of what you want, and then they bid for, you know, for to be the winner
Yeah.
of your book cover. And I picked my cover, and I actually got it published on my birthday within the 5 week period that we
Wow.
set. And I did it all from my phone.
Wow. Yeah, like you mentioned, everything could be done as long as you have, purpose, intention, and you are willing to be, kind of like true to yourself, to be honest with yourself, and to speak up about everything that's bothering you, to not being afraid to talk to people who can help you. And that recovery could grow into something that would show you the purpose in your life. And you have to be strong enough, resilient enough to kind of get through and see yourself on the other side, and see how strong you truly are and how much power you have within you. And in order to find that power, that source of power, you have to reconnect to yourself first. And that reflects into your outer world. It's just a natural way of, aligning yourself with the universal energy, I guess. And being spiritual and religious is two different things. And I think, some people are more inclined to one or another, but in any case, they will find that kind of, I would say, non-physical part of themselves that help them to get through those obstacles, life challenges. And I think we need to dedicate time every day to reconnect to ourselves, to know how strong we are and where we're going.
Well, I mean, everybody considers love as just like, you know, this between two people, you know, and love
Mm-hmm.
is just is unconditional. The who, the where, the what, the when, the why are all conditions of something that just is, which is love, you know. And I have S.Y.L tattooed on the inside of my mouth,
Mm-hmm.
like my book cover, to help remind me that everything that comes out of my mouth should be within love, you know. And that's really
Yeah.
what Christ consciousness was about. I don't care what you want to call God. I don't care if you call it Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, a pin over there, you know, whatever brings you closer to your higher self, to your inner
Yeah.
being. You know, I mean, we are all spiritual, you know, entities living in a human life. Like we're all living in the same cell, you know, the same life sentence in a different cell,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and everybody's experience is different. But I feel like we're all extensions of like God, just trying to experience every single possible possibility that there is out there. Because even if I say the word taco to you, my taco is different no matter if I explain it. If you're the most empathic person in the world and you can feel what I'm saying, you can still only feel from your level of awareness, from your
Yeah.
perception. Like nobody, like you can't tell a a bird what jacuzzi bubbles feel like. You have to actually experience what a jacuzzi bubble feels like to yourself. Like, I will never know what it's like to be a tree, but that tree does. The bird that's weathering the storm inside that tree, like, has no idea what it's like to be a human, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that everything, once you see everything as like an extension of God, that there is really, it's God, like, experiencing every single possible possibility that there is to experience, and
Right.
it makes it a lot more like, I can see the God in everybody. I can
Mm-hmm.
see, like, wow, that, the person that is digging through the trash can, homeless, digging through the trash can, going through some sort of crazy major, experience. Like, wow, um, what an amazing story that God is living, like, what an amazing
Mm.
experience that person is a representation of God, like, then you think of
Yeah.
all the people who are on vacation in their boats, people flying by in a plane, the person driving in a car next to you, it's like everybody
Mm-hmm.
is having their own personal representation of an experience for God.
Yeah, that's true. And we need to be aware that every one of us is, like you said, representation of God, and they live in through their own stories, their own experiences. And we just need to be compassionate to those people and don't judge them. Just be kind, and to understand that they're going through their own challenges in life. And that's very important to kind of note for everybody, to not be judgmental. And I think in unity together, we find solutions and a healing process, as long as we are being compassionate and not, exercising any kind of negative feeling towards others. So first we need to heal ourselves and also be considerate of others' feeling as well. And together we're gonna heal in much better evolving society.
Like a star seed, once I learned about the term star seed, like,
Mm-hmm.
it completely changed my whole outlook on everything. Like, I really feel like
Yeah.
I am here as a living light being, here to help raise the consciousness of the planet into unconditional love, like, to spread unconditional love onto the ley lines of the planet, and that, when you pluck a guitar string, if the one guitar string is in tune, it makes the other string vibrate. So
Yeah.
whatever you're vibrating at, whatever level your vibration at, is affecting everything around you. So
Right.
I've learned to be very aware of, like, not only of what I'm thinking in my mind, but the vibration that I'm putting out into the world. Because it's love is just as contagious as fear is. And they're all just a frequency. you know I believe that once you own everything that you have ever done, everything that you have ever, like, every part of yourself, you become rich in ways that nobody can take from you. Once I owned everything that I have ever done, any shameful anything, there's nothing anybody can say to me that, if it isn't true, that I won't be like, okay, yeah, I own that. And that comes with such enrichment inside myself. There's nothing that anybody can say to me that I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to go hide in a corner, or I feel bad about that. Like, yes, I did that, yes, that is true, or yes, that isn't true, you know. And I believe that owning, all of your shameful parts of you, and expressing love for them, like, helps you stand as a taller person, like, helps other people see that they can do that within themselves as well. Like, once you own everything that you have ever done and ever are, then there's nothing that anybody can do to you, say to you, or take from you. you know it's a richness that you will go to your grave with. Like, material stuff can be taken,
Yeah.
people come and go, but your sense of self, like, like, I have this newfound, like, sense of love for myself that I it'll go with me wherever I go, like, finding
Right.
true happiness inside myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it took a long time to stop people pleasing, to say no. Like, nobody tells you. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
says, oh, you got to love yourself, but nobody tells you how to do that. you
Mm.
know Nobody tells you what that encompasses. you know and
Right.
it's telling people that you love, no, no, you can't come and stay with me, because it is detrimental to my own well-being. No, I'm not going to come to your house at 2 o'clock in the morning because you called me for a booty call. No, I'm not going to just take all your laundry and fold it and do all this stuff because you know what I mean? Like we have a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to people please, and we think that they should love us more if we do these things. And in all honesty, we're just hurting ourselves. And we're always trying to fill some sort of internal void with an external solution, and it always comes from the inside.
Right. And when people trying to find the external sources of love, it will always be scarce. It will not be abundant because that's where you find yourselves within you. And that power will always be with you. Nobody can take that away from you.
Yep.
And like you said, own everything that you are, everything that you possess, because this is who you were born. And this is who you are. And even if you did something that you're not proud of in the past, you should also own it, because you are responsible for changing. You can change to the person, to the best version of you that you can be. It's in your power. As long as you ready to realize that, that's when you get that power back and you start changing and you start improving and evolving. So you have to also, like you said, realize the difference between people pleasing or trying to find that type of love, or I don't know, some kind of appreciation from the outside. But it will never be enough, and you will never satisfy everybody. It's impossible. You will be always people who don't like you. So it's just a fact, and you just need to accept that. And there is no need to try to please everybody. So once we get to that place where we understand that we are enough, I don't need any external validation. And that's within me. I have that power to move on. And that's where we find true happiness and love, unconditional love.
And finding unconditional love for the shameful things within ourselves is, it's easy to forgive other people, like, oh, you're just human, I forgive you. But then we harp on ourselves, like, I can't believe I did this, I'm such a disgusting person, and we beat ourselves up like so much more than we do to other people. Like, we don't forgive ourselves. We are so much harder on ourselves than we are, like, if our child, did something wrong. We're not going to harp on our child for years and years and years because they touched a hot stove. Like, we let them learn, we love them, we encourage them, but we don't turn that love towards ourselves. And a lot of us have turned away from our inner child. We have ignored our inner child. We've ignored the child that is like, no, please forgive me. Please forgive me for the things that I did not know. Please forgive me for having these survival mechanisms, that I wasn't aware of. I believe the only mistakes we make in life are the ones we don't learn from. Because if you honestly don't know that something is a mistake, then it's not a mistake, it's a mistake. You'll have an opportunity to do it again. And I truly believe, like, if you honestly didn't know something was wrong, or, you mess up, everybody messes up, but we harp on ourselves so much harder than we would to our own child. And
Right.
I think we need to learn how to, like literally, like, I started hugging myself. Like, I would look myself in the mirror and I'd be like, I am sorry. Like the Hana Anapono, the Hana, like, I love you, please forgive me. That those, I would literally look in the mirror and like see my inner child. Like, when I thought of my inner child running up to me when I was in active addiction, like, what did we do when we grow up? Just all bright eyed and excited, and then I just get to tell her all of this trauma and addiction and, people pleasing and all this stuff. And it broke my heart to think about my inner child running up to me, and me having to tell her all of these things. And after I wrote my book and I dedicated it to my inner child, I was like, now I can, when my inner child runs up to me and she's like, what did we do? What did we do? All bright eyed, I can look at her and be like, we did this and this and this. And now we are helping people to evolve themselves so that their inner child can run up to them and do the same thing, and I just got goosebumps. Like, I don't know, it means a lot.
Yeah, and actually that type of exercise is very powerful when you imagine your inner child. Just close your eyes, like in your third eye, just some kind of visualization where like you see yourself right now talking to your inner child at that time when you were like 5, 6. And that conversation in your head could release a lot of kind of trauma or like something that would prevent you from moving forward. Every type of like kind of limit that you are associated with past, with your mistakes that you did because you didn't know, and something that could have happened. And that's where you can release that, that grief or maybe like some negative feelings that you might have, and just talk to that inner child like you're talking to your own child with compassion, knowing that it's time to forgive. And now you're doing that conversation like in real time and you forgive that person, and you feel such a release in real time where you can really feel something got lighter and you can just move forward and take that behind, leave it behind you. And that actually helps.
My inner child was very angry. She was a very, very angry, like she was angry. She was very angry, and I would express myself in, lashing out on different people that I loved, or, like self-sabotage, like the fear of success was way more difficult for me than the fear of failure. Like I'm okay with failure. Like I can do that on any drop of the dime. Like I've got that under control. But the idea of actually succeeding was very scary for me. And I had to really like face that inside myself, like, okay, what happens if you do succeed in this? What's going, like you have people that depend on you, you have people that are out there that are scared of your success as well, because if you're successful, then that takes time away from them, and then you start people pleasing again, but my inner child was very angry. She was very angry. She felt very, like, used and abused, taken advantage of, that nobody listened, nobody cared, that everybody was just out to hurt her, and like she had, like, why didn't anybody do anything about it when I was a child? Like I had a lot of unresolved anger issues from being a child, and it came out in my adulthood, towards loved ones, toxic relationships. I kept inviting toxicity into my life because I had toxicity inside of me, and like trauma bonding was a real thing. Like trauma bonds is definitely a real thing. We start relating with our trauma, oh, well, this happened to me. Well, this happened to me. Okay. Well, now we could be together and, talk about these things and heal each other, but really it doesn't end up healing each other. It just ends up opening those wounds further and further, learning like healthy behaviors towards relationships was something that, I just turned 41. It's taken me my whole life to figure out, what that even encompasses,
Yeah, and I'm glad that you shared with us your journey of becoming the person you are today, and to come into this beautiful place where you started to heal and put that behind you, but also like take something away from what you learned, and that definitely made you stronger, more resilient, and I see a bright future for yourself. And I'm very glad that we had that conversation for our listeners. And I will put the episode description with a link to check your book. So if somebody is interested, they could look into that in more detail. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
All right. And enjoy your day.
You as well.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.